1 week season fam, La Familia, welcome back to DFS Labs Fanduel edition, Thanksgiving episode. Welcome everyone. We are going to feast this week. Great 3-game slate on our plates. We have Packers at Lions. We have Chiefs at Cowboys. We have Bengals at Ravens. What more could you want? A full day of football. All spouses and families certainly appreciate it as well. Once again, we are 1 week season. You can find us at oneweekseason.com. As you can see on the screen, we have Black Friday deals, 80% off our rest of season subscriptions for Inner Circle or DFS. So that's normally a $230 subscription, just under $50. I believe it's like $45 at this time. Our Big Machine, our optimizer, is only $19 for the rest of the season. Honestly, these are crazy prices. I feel like we're kind of giving stuff away. So if you've been kind of on the fence and waiting for the opportunity to join or want to check it out, see if it's right for you, perfect time. Still get a third of the NFL season ahead of you, including the Thanksgiving slate and then the playoffs and Super Bowl. With all of that, we're going to get right into it. I'm going to bring my boy in. Maximus, how we doing today?
Happy Turkey Day coming up, sir. To clone or not to clone? That is the question. Looking forward to getting in to the Thanksgiving slate with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was talking about, it's a pretty fun one, pretty interesting one. You've got two dome games as always, Dallas and Detroit. You've got the Baltimore-Cincinnati game, which last I checked, there wasn't anything too outlandish in terms of the weather. It might be a little chilly, but it's not like it's going to be crazy rain or winds or anything like that. We've got the Bengals defense as giving as always, and then the Cowboys a little bit improved. I did all the edge write-ups for these 3 games, so I'm pretty interested in. I feel like there's a lot of different angles to play here, and I feel like on the surface there is. All the games have relatively similar game totals. They have the Packers and Lions. It's a 48-point game total, 3-point spread. The Cowboys and Chiefs, a 52-point game total, 3-point spread. And the Bengals and Ravens, a 51.5-point game total with a 7-point spread. So all spreads within one possession. All games between 48 and 52 with the game total. So on the surface, a lot of that looks very similar, but I think that there's a lot of nuance there. And I kind of dig into that in our NFL Edge this week. I go a little bit deeper than I do kind of on our standard games, just a little bit longer, because I do think there's a lot to dig into. And then, of course, as always, the short weeks. I was kind of surprised that they didn't have some of these teams on bye last week, or like last Thursday's game. In the past, they would try to have like two of the 6 teams that are going to play this Thursday would play the previous Thursday, just from 6 teams all playing on short weeks. We're deep into the season now, right? This isn't week 3 where they've only played a couple games and the short turnaround they may not feel it quite as much. So I feel like there's just so much volatility and variance is our friend when we are trying to take first place in these tournaments. So you want to add anything, or you want to get into building right away?
Yeah, the other thing I was going to say, we have such a great slate. There are 3 competitive games. There's remote to realistic playoff implications for every team in every game. Usually at Thanksgiving, you always have one game where it's like a dud team that's playing the Lions or the Cowboys, and then you have like one good game, and then you have kind of like a nightcap. But here, it's like all kind of level playing fields of games with a lot of implications, and they're very important games to every team involved. So it makes it exciting to try to figure out this puzzle.
Do you like my turkey?
He's in the spirit, but I do. What is your favorite Thanksgiving? Ooh. I guess not including a turkey, right, for the spread.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not that big of a fan of turkey. I am perennially guilty of like overfilling my plate, like get too much because there's I'm gonna have to go with hmm, there's a specific type of potatoes that are usually made at mine that they really hit the spot. I don't even know what they're called, but
Au gratin, maybe?
no, that no, it's not that. It's it's something like that, like a certain way that it's made
Sure.
or something. Obviously stuffing's good. I love coleslaw. Um, and yeah.
I'm a casserole guy myself. I love a good like hash brown casserole. Not typical historical standard Thanksgiving fare, but I definitely into the casseroles. But I digress.
Shout out Brian Berg. Happy Thanksgiving, guys. Good luck tomorrow. Good luck to you as well, Brian, friend of the show, friend of mine. Actually play in some golf tournaments with him in the summer up here in Wisconsin. We are enjoying some horrible weather right now. It is like 30 degrees. It's semi snowing, but it's like warm enough that it's melting and it's just nasty and 20-mile-an-hour winds. It's awful. Don't come here. Stay in Florida, Steve, as long as you can. Cherish it.
Stick with me, kid. Yeah.
There you go. Brian Berg, Costco pecan pie. All right, I'm gonna have to
Very nice.
see what that's all about. Good stuff. All right, let's get into the building here. Give the people what they want. It's provocative. All right. We're going to build in the Thursday NFL Roasted Rush today. You guys don't have to play this, but $3 tournament, 50 grand up top, 88,000 entries. And when there's that many entries, they have this size of tournament on the main slates, but when they have that many on the, a 3-game slate like this, it is like you're going to have to get weird to win it, or you're going to be tied with like 34 other people or something like that, depending on how things play out. So doesn't always have to be the whole thing is weird, but you're going to have to think through like what realistically could be a truly unique way to build. And the other thing, just a quick aside that I think is important to think about, because I do our afternoon only content at 1 week season, is there's only 3 games, so like a big thing is condensing your player pool on main slates. That's something that a lot of people I think struggle with, and you could see when you'd play these main slates like really high scores that would finish highly most weeks in main slate tournaments built from just like a pool of 3 games. So from that standpoint, I think it's just a valuable learning lesson and tool. These main slates can be, or these smaller slates can be, for helping convince you to play from a smaller player pool and not to get drawn to every shiny thing on a main slate. But I'm digressing a bit, so I'll let you take the wheel and steer the ship here. Where are we going to go?
Yeah, no, that was a good thought. And also stacking, I think, with your quarterback. I mean, I think elements like that, I think on smaller slates become even more important. And I do like to follow your lead here because I know you kind of do this kind of slate every week through the afternoon only slates. And I know there's probably a lot of strats that are similar that would apply in a setup like this on Thanksgiving. So I guess if we want to build a team, maybe go game by game and see maybe for this particular build, what elements or who we want to kind of start, and then maybe kind of go to the next spot and then see if we can end up with a composed build. And then, there's always the thought of, building, depending on how many entries you're doing, I guess, maybe building based on 20 entry or 150 max, like maybe shells or clones of maybe 4 or 5 teams. And then, kind of, I think the other thing that's strategic is having the amount of time in between games on a Thanksgiving slate to be able to adjust and kind of see where stuff may be falling. But so let's start with 3 play. I want to go ahead and do 3 players from the first game. Green Bay at Detroit. Once you pop, you can't stop. Let's put in Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm surprised he's not 10,000 on FanDuel. They still have him at 9,500. Maybe given a little bit of a discount for Thanksgiving for people to be fitting him in. But I actually want to go ahead and do Jahmyr Gibbs and pair him with the Detroit Lions defense. And then this is something that I'm always on a main slate if it's like more than 10 games, usually adverse to, but here it's so common and in some ways no choice in a way to play players that are going against opposing defenses. So let's go ahead and bring it back. Gibbs and the Lions defense. We'll bring it back with Christian Watson for the Green Bay Packers. I think he has maybe inadvertently kind of become the wide receiver one for this team as of recent times. I know we need to watch the Jaden Reed news that, he may come back in time for Thanksgiving. I think if he did, it doesn't really change the outlook of the way that they use Watson with the downfield usage. So I kind of like this start of Gibbs, the Lions defense. I think the Lions, it's funny. I was completely off Jameis Winston on Sunday, and I was actually more on the Lions side of that scenario just because, the interceptions can be there, the turnovers can be there. He did actually throw an interception, and he was really close on some other ones, but there were a couple of explosive plays that kind of elevated over that situation of the negative aspects of what Jameis can provide. But in this case, I like the Lions at home. Packer, only 4 days later, Josh Jacobs, I'm sure will be cleared to play, but probably not operating at 100%. I think the Lions defense can still be opportunistic. And I think overall the Packers haven't been looking elite by any means on offense, but I do like how Christian Watson's been involved of recent times. So my start would be Gibbs, Lions defense, Christian Watson. Maybe for this team, you could add in a Jamo or a Amon-Ra. Maybe I'll leave that spot for if you want to add one more piece or if you want to continue on to game number 2, continuing the build.
Yeah, no, I like this. And to your point, I think some rules that are, quote unquote rules that people like to follow on main slates sometimes got to get thrown out the window. I do like the kind of story this tells. As you said, Watson basically has become the Packers wide receiver one. He is, he's had, I believe he led the team in targets this last week. He had, let me find it. Yeah, so he led the team in snaps, 49 out of 66 snaps. That was the most for any wide receiver. Led the team in routes run, 22 routes on 25 dropbacks, and was targeted seven times, which was a 35% target share. The team was without Matthew Golden. They may be getting Matthew Golden back. They may be getting Jaden Reed back. Dontavian Wicks played last week. He's been nursing a calf injury. But so it could be kind of mixed up behind them. But it seems like Watson and Romeo Doubs are kind of their main guys on the perimeter. Without Tucker Kraft, they're in the process of kind of morphing as an offense. They're figuring out how to use their personnel because they don't really seem to like their other tight ends to do anything near what Kraft did. So it'll be interesting how they attack this, but certainly we know Gibbs is explosive. We know that Lions defense, like you said, they're opportunistic. Packers offensive line is kind of beat up and they're playing on a short week. Even last week they played the Vikings. Emmanuel Wilson, was a fun story. Shout out to those who played him. I know we had him on our build last Wednesday, but even at that, he had 30 touches, averaged under 4 yards per carry. It's not like I think his long run was 12. So it's not like they're an explosive running game. Even Jacobs, he's still nursing that injury if he plays. So yeah, I think there's a lot of systemic risk for the Packers, and you can certainly see, this certainly tells a story of Gibbs' explosive plays, giving him a lead, them continuing to lean on him a little bit. And then, the Lions defense can tee off while maybe Watson makes some plays, keeping him in it. So, yeah, to that end, like this little start. Looking at the next game, Dallas at Kansas City. Obviously, George Pickens had the massive game last week. I like this as a CD Lamb kind of bounce back spot. I think they're going to try to get him involved. My issue with Lamb is he's right in that range. He's more expensive than Rashee Rice, Jamar Chase, and St. Brown. Not that much more expensive. He's still more expensive than Pickens, whereas on DraftKings, Pickens is actually $100 more expensive than him now. So this game is probably the one that I have the hardest time really wanting to build around. But I certainly see paths to it. I think of the two, because of the salary structures and the way the teams play, I think the way I would want to do the rest of this roster would be either a Mahomes stack with Rice and then an ancillary pass catcher, like not Travis Kelce, not Xavier Worthy, maybe like Hollywood Brown or Juju Smith-Schuster, just a guy that I wouldn't even consider on a main slate, but just as a way to kind of do it differently. Otherwise, we could just look to that that Thursday night game and maybe just fill in a couple guys. See if there's a guy or two that fits the build at the end from KC Dallas to throw it in there, or skip it all together. I think that could be a viable strategy as well.
Yeah, my thinking was Mahomes, maybe for this team too. I think the Chiefs, coming off a big comeback victory on the Colts on Sunday, they're still in the playoff hunt. They're pretty much still in a must-win situation. We know the Cowboys defense has gotten a little bit better against the run with Quinnen Williams, but still against the pass, definitely vulnerable. And I think Mr. Mahomes could definitely chuck it 30 or 40 times or more in this game on a fast field in a dome. So I do like the Mahomes-Rice call. And I do like, everybody's down on Lamb because of Pickens outperforming him, but it's just a matter of time. He was targeted 11 times last week, and he's had a healthy amount of targets each week. He's just kind of had, for whatever bizarre reason, drop-itis against the Eagles 2 times. But if you want to go straight, Mahomes and Rice, I think is definitely, there's a degree of certainty there. I don't think the Cowboys have the kind of defense that can limit that connection. So I think it could definitely be productive. Not sure if we necessarily need a Cowboys bring back or not, but if we did, it probably would be Pickens or Lamb, which would probably limit the salary. However, in the third game, there is instant chalk value at the tight end spot that probably frees up a lot of salary to, within reason, do what we may want to do with this game if we wanted to stay with it. But if you want to kind of keep that on hold and move to the third game, we can get into that a little bit.
Yeah, let's move to the third game. We'll just leave Mahomes and Rice in there. So, and then we could talk through the third game. Is there something specific you're kind of leading into it? What do you like?
Yeah, they have. It's amazing. I think you mentioned it in our Discord. Jamar Chase wasn't even in the player pool at first on Fanduel this week. And I actually thought that was the same situation for the guy I'm about to mention. And give me a second here. Oh, let me make sure he is. Yeah, he is. I couldn't find him because I had to go all the way to min price. Mike Gesicki, tight end for the Cincinnati Bengals, still listing him at $4,000. We know historically when T. Higgins doesn't play, Gesicki could definitely act as that wide receiver too, with somebody like Burrow most likely coming back and Jamar Chase. And, while it's going to be, I'm sure, extremely chalky on these kind of builds, we definitely have to differentiate somewhere, I would think, to separate yourself from maybe what the rest of the field may be doing. But just a shout out to him on the face of it as a cheap way to get a piece of that game and to maybe unlock some salary on some other directions that we want to go in this game or in the prior game that we started to talk about.
Okay, yeah, Gesicki, good. Let's go ahead and throw Derrick Henry in here as well. 8,800. Henry has he had 2 touchdowns last week. Kind of an inefficient game. 21 carries, 64 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's had it's kind of different than what we think of when we think of Derrick Henry. You think of these like complete duds, and these massive smash games have kind of been the story for him over the years, or recent years at least. But you look at the last 6 weeks, FanDuel points of 16.5, 19.1, 15.6, 9.9, 22.2, 21.8. Just very steady in there. He has had at least 100 yards or a touchdown, or he has reached the 100-yard rushing threshold for the bonus, or scored a touchdown in 5 of those 6 games. So very, steady production. And obviously, like I said, I did the NFL Edge right up for this game, and the Bengals defense, it's pretty incredible how many categories they are last or close to last in. I mean, it's just like everything. Like they are dead last in the NFL per FTN in adjusted line yards, which basically measures how far downfield they're allowing running backs to get before first contact. They also are near the top of the league. They lead the league with 129 missed tackles. The Steelers are second at 94. So by a wide margin, they're the worst tackling team in the league. And then you look at PFF grades, and they are bottom 5 in all of run defense, tackling, pass rush, and coverage grades. So they are just, the film, the data, any metric you look at, they're really struggling. Couldn't be much better of a spot for Henry. The thing I kind of like about this build is I would expect both Henry and Gibbs end up like 40 to 50% owned in this 3-game slate. But I don't think that will be equally distributed. I guess what I mean by that is I think most rosters, you're going to look at like probably 85 to 90% ownership between the two. But I don't think that, like, usually if one player is rostered at 50%, another player is rostered at 50%, just the math on it says that 25% of rosters should have both of them. And I don't think at their price points and with all the high-priced wide receivers in great spots this week, I don't think that it will be like an exact thing like that. I think mostly those 85 to 90% of rosters, a large proportion of those, larger than would be expected, will play one of them. And very few rosters will play both. So just from a roster construction standpoint, that gives you kind of a little bit of a unique way to build there for sure. So we've got Henry, we've got Gesicki, and then to kind of finish it out, I kind of alluded to this before. I kind of like the idea, again, smaller slate, especially if you're in a larger field tournament. This isn't necessarily a play I would be looking to get into, but Juju Smith-Schuster, 4,800. He is, if we look at last week's, let me pull it up. If we look at last week's usage, Chiefs wide receiver usage, so Juju played on 45 of 92 snaps, so about half the snaps, ran 20 routes, which was not a huge number, was only targeted twice. But the way Dallas plays defense, they play a lot of zone coverage, leaves a lot of openings underneath. That's part of why Rice looks so appealing this week. But also when you look at the receivers behind Rice and Worthy, and Worthy especially, Worthy's kind of more of a downfield threat. Hollywood Brown and Tyquan Thornton kind of are as well. Juju's kind of another guy that works those underneath areas. So if we wanted to double stack Mahomes, I think he's a guy that will be on the field and for a cheap price. You can turn that single stack into a double stack. Leaves you right at 5,500. So we're actually just $100 short of being able to fit Mark Andrews. So
maybe
yeah,
maybe the Packers defense. I mean, you figure, Jahmyr Gibbs can have a big game regardless of what the defense may be able to do with the quarterback. So that could be one route if you wanted to drop down to the Packers, and then that would get you up to that Andrews territory.
Yeah. So here's a question then. And I like that build because I don't think Watson's not, even in like a trailing game script, he's not the type of guy that's going to just like get like 12 or 13 targets. You're looking at him, he's probably going to be like a 7 to 9 target guy regardless of game script, and you're hoping that they're for big plays. So those big plays can also be getting you out in front, which, Packers defense, we saw them tee off on Jared Goff once already. So I guess the question now would be, do you like this Juju plus Mark Andrews build, or do you want to flip it up and you could go with Xavier Worthy and Isaiah Likely instead? So getting that third Chiefs wide receiver, you're going to end up either way with a Mahomes double with 2 wide receivers, and you're going to end up either way with a Baltimore running back and tight end with a Gesicki bring back. So yeah, I'll leave it up to you how you want to go with those last 2 guys.
Yeah, I way prefer door number 2. I mean, I think Xavier Worthy, he's due for a big game. I mean, he got targeted almost as much as Rashee Rice did. He had 8 targets last week. Mahomes did find him, I think, downfield at least once, maybe a couple times. I think he's kind of been battling through injuries periodically, but against a defense like Dallas, I think that's in that stadium. I mean, the type of game that it could be, I think Worthy will definitely be utilized, and Rice is kind of your Juju's. It's kind of more like a Rice territory guy as far as the area of the field he usually operates, and so I love having the middle of the field for Rice, and then your potential deep shots or gadget plays for Worthy, and then Likely's another one. I mean, we know what Likely's capable of doing. In recent history, the mentality will be Andrews with the connection with Lamar historically, but Likely has had a lot of big games. Definitely capable. I know that Lamar's looked downfield for him over the last few games whenever he watched him here and there, and Lamar is. I like the Henry call too, because clearly Lamar, either they're deliberately limiting his rushing for maybe the playoffs, or he's actually nursing an injury, it looks like to me, that is just not being talked about. Because Lamar definitely has not been on the rushing end of the spectrum of his skill set, really indulging in that part of his game recently. He's been, trying to let his teammates do the work, so to speak, when it comes to rushing. So yeah, no, I definitely, for the upside and for the uniqueness of the build, I think I like the Worthy Likely is a good call.
Yeah, and that is something I talked about in my in my write-up for the NFL Edge, was basically just that. Like Lamar, he's got a toe injury that he's been sitting out like the first practice of the week. So he didn't practice Monday, was back yesterday, and then practicing again today. So they're just kind of managing it. But I also feel like their schedule is real soft right now, and it's a thing where he probably could run if he really needed to, but they're going to let him kind of be who he is, or just manage the game, survive it. You can see he's low volume pass. He hasn't had 30 pass attempts in a game yet this season. 23, 25, 29, and 23 since he came back from injury. Yeah, so I mean, they're kind of just letting him be, and that's they haven't really needed him to be anything else. So, and of course, with this being on a short week, that could be even more the case. And then they get 10 days before they play again, and maybe he'll be closer to full strength with that foot injury after that. So yeah, I think that I think I like this lineup a lot for how we have it and how we're going to end it. I think the other one might be more like if we were putting this into this tournament that we're building in, that's 88,000 entries. I think those last two spots, taking the other route that seems maybe a little suboptimal, but is probably going to be far more unique. Might be more the play, but I think for like the higher dollar stuff or the like smaller field type things that you like to play, I think how we've got it here is perfect.
Agreed. I think we got a good bit of ceiling. We got some foundation with the running backs that obviously a lot of people will be playing, but the double tight end, it's just doing that. You already know you're being unique, especially on Fanduel. So.
Yeah, for sure. So for those listening on the podcast feed, our final roster here is Patrick Mahomes double stack with Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. Running backs Jahmyr Gibbs and Derrick Henry, double paying up for both of them, using that somewhat unique roster construction as a way to differentiate slightly without having to sacrifice projection. The other wide receiver spot, Christian Watson for the Packers. And then we have double tight end with Mike Gesicki and Isaiah Likely, both with cheap price points. Would expect Likely to come in sub 10%, just because, Andrews, I think Andrews and Gesicki and Kelsey will draw the most ownership, and most people aren't going to want to play that second tight end. And certainly two from the same game. So just a couple of unique roster construction points in there with the two pay up running backs, the two pay down tight ends, and then rounding it out, targeting our boy Jared Goff with the Green Bay Packers defense. So, yeah, I like it. I dig it. Any parting shots before we go?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a fun lineup. I look forward to digging in a little more. It looks like in my case, I'll have a little time prior to the kickoffs tomorrow to kind of mess with some things. We have Brian Berg. What about Mitch Tinsley at 4,100 with Higgins out? Yeah, I thought about him too. He's a good pivot. If everybody's going Gesicki, maybe he becomes that wide receiver, that elusive wide receiver too. That he did get some targets last week as well, albeit with Flacco. But what do you think about Tinsley on your end?
Yeah, I think all those guys. I think another way talking about roster construction, ways to get kind of unique on this slate. If you were to build around Joe Burrow, obviously Jamar Chase is the easy way and like the clear way that you would want to stack him. But I think for the uniqueness of this slate and how condensed things get, I actually think that, and in my NFL Edge write-up, I talked about the likelihood that the Bengals become extremely pass heavy in this game. With Burrow coming back from the toe thing, probably going to have to play almost exclusively out of shotgun, just for his mobility. I know in the practice reports last week and in the videos, almost every snap he was taking was from shotgun. So I think, and then just going back as you do this over the years, that's a thing that Zach Taylor has done, the way his offense is structured, why they've struggled with a lot of the zone defense shells over the years, is they're very predictable. They passed at a very low rate out of when they were under center, and they hardly ever ran when they were out of shotgun. Now they've changed that a little bit, but just generally how they're structured, it's very vanilla, straightforward running schemes that they do from shotgun, and the Ravens are going to eat that up. So I think that he could have to throw a ton. So kind of where I'm going with this is I think Joe Burrow like triple stacks with Chase and two of those cheap guys, Yoshivas, Tinsley, Gesicki. You could even look at like Pirine as a cheap running back, as a way to get different. I even think that because of the price points and because of how touchdowns are so valuable, you could make a Burrow double stack with, say, Tinsley and Gesicki, and not include Chase. And basically, the bet is, on that build that, Chase is obviously going to have still a very strong game, but he could easily put up 20 points and Lamb goes for 30 or something like that. And, now you're built a little bit differently. It's different when some quarterbacks, their top receivers priced at like 6,800. And it's like, well, if the quarterback goes off, he's going to have a score that you kind of need to have. At 9,500, Chase could score 22 points and it might not carry the weight for you. So just another thing to consider, especially depending on what type of tournament you're building for, just a way to kind of differentiate, in those larger field tournaments that feels uncomfortable, but it has value because of the discomfort, I guess.
Yeah, I like that thought. You have another elite receiver in another game, and so you're betting on the ancillary pieces, kind of taking away enough of that ceiling from someone like Chase, so he doesn't surpass maybe your elite guy that you have on that build from another game. So yeah, I dig it.
Good stuff. Well, as you guys all see at the bottom, once again, just a reminder, Black Friday deals, 80% off all our subscriptions, Inner Circle, DFS, rest of the season, takes you through the Super Bowl, gives you a taste of everything that we do. You can consider it for next year. Obviously, our Bink machine, if you're into optimizers, only $19 for the rest of the season. Personally, and I'm a guy who for years never did anything with an optimizer. I was all by hand. But it has made my life significantly easier in the last 3 years, just from a time perspective, being able to make the rosters quicker and read what I'm doing. And, so yeah, where I'm going with it is for $19. If you're one of those people, it's a very small investment and you can kind of toy with it and learn with it. You don't even have to throw the lineups into tournaments if you're not like totally comfortable with how it works. But you can kind of use this end of this season to teach yourself how to use it, to bounce ideas off people in our Discord, to watch the tutorials and then put them into play, and kind of have that added to your bag for next season. Nice little early Christmas present. So that is my TED Talk for today. Thank you all for attending. I am Max. He is Steve. We are 1 Week Season. Check us out, oneweekseason.com. Peace.
1 Week Season.